3 Scary Home Alone Stories.
Once upon a time, in a quaint little village nestled between towering mountains and dense forests, lived a young boy named Ethan. Ethan was a curious and adventurous child, always seeking excitement in the smallest of things. But there was one thing that truly frightened him: storms. The thunder would rumble like a growling beast, and lightning would split the sky like a wicked grin, casting eerie shadows on the walls. One stormy night, Ethan's parents received an urgent call from a relative in a neighboring village. They had to rush over to provide assistance, leaving Ethan behind with strict instructions to stay indoors. As the rain began to pour and the wind howled, Ethan's heart raced, knowing that he was all alone. The house creaked and groaned under the pressure of the storm, amplifying the already unsettling atmosphere. Ethan huddled on the couch, clutching a blanket and trying to distract himself with a book. However, his eyes kept darting toward the window, where flashes of lightning illuminated the world outside in brief, unsettling glimpses. As the clock ticked on, the power flickered and then went out completely, plunging the house into darkness. Ethan's fear intensified, and he felt a knot in his stomach as he realized he was truly alone in the blackness. Just as he was about to light a candle, he heard a soft whisper coming from the hallway. He froze, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The whisper sounded so much like his own voice, but distorted, twisted into something sinister. He strained his ears, but the whisper didn't come again. Trying to dismiss it as his imagination, Ethan managed to light a candle and resumed his seat on the couch. Time passed, and the storm showed no signs of letting up. The whisper returned, this time closer and more urgent. Terror coursed through him. He looked around, but the source of the voice remained hidden. Then, a flash of lightning revealed a figure standing in the shadows at the edge of the hallway. A figure that looked just like him, but twisted and malevolent. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, and its grin was wicked. Ethan's heart raced as he realized he was facing an evil version of himself. The doppelganger moved with a slow, deliberate purpose, each step sending shivers down Ethan's spine. He knew he had to hide, to find a way to escape this nightmare. With the candle flickering in his trembling hand, Ethan darted into his parents' bedroom and hid in the closet, praying that the evil version of himself wouldn't find him. The sound of footsteps grew louder, and the closet door slowly creaked open.
"Ethan, I can smell your fear,"
the twisted doppelganger hissed, its voice an unsettling blend of familiarity and malevolence. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, tears mixing with the rain-soaked fear on his cheeks. He wished with all his might that this nightmare would end, that his parents would return to rescue him. Just as he thought all was lost, a brilliant flash of lightning filled the room, and a deafening crash of thunder echoed through the house. When the light faded, Ethan's parents were standing in the doorway, their worried faces illuminated by the fading glow of the lightning. They rushed to Ethan's side, holding him tightly and comforting him. The evil doppelganger was nowhere to be found, as if it had vanished into thin air. The storm eventually subsided, and Ethan's parents held him close throughout the night, reassuring him that he was safe. But even in the daylight, he couldn't shake the memory of the evil version of himself lurking in the shadows, a reminder of the darkness that can reside within anyone, even a young boy on a stormy night.
In a quiet suburban neighborhood, nestled between towering trees and well-manicured lawns, lived a young girl named Lily. Lily was an imaginative and curious child, with a room filled with an array of colorful toys that had kept her company for years. Among her collection were stuffed animals, action figures, and dolls that had once been her closest friends. One fateful night, Lily's parents had to attend an emergency event in the city, leaving her home alone. The moon hung high in the inky sky, and a chilling breeze rustled the leaves outside her window. At first, Lily was excited by the prospect of having the whole house to herself. She had always dreamed of staying up late, reading her books and playing with her toys until the early hours. As the night deepened, Lily's excitement waned, replaced by a sense of unease. Shadows danced on her walls, cast by the dim glow of her nightlight. The soft creaks and groans of the house felt amplified in the stillness of the night, and the air seemed charged with an inexplicable tension. Lily sat on her bed, surrounded by her toys, trying to distract herself by playing a quiet game. But as the minutes ticked by, something felt off. She glanced around the room, her heart quickening as she thought she saw one of her stuffed animals move on its own. She blinked, attributing it to her imagination, and turned her attention back to her game. Yet, the feeling of being watched persisted. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught glimpses of her toys shifting slightly, as if they were inching closer. A shiver ran down her spine as her stuffed animals seemed to be repositioning themselves, their plastic eyes glinting in the dim light. Lily's heart pounded as her toys began to move more boldly. The once smiling faces of her dolls twisted into sinister grins, and her action figures appeared to be locked in menacing poses. She could hardly believe her eyes as her stuffed animals, once so soft and cuddly, now seemed to writhe and slither like living creatures. A cold sweat coated her palms as she realized that her toys were no longer under her control. The room was now a cacophony of faint rustling and eerie giggles, as if the toys were communicating in some sinister way. Lily's courage wavered, and she clutched her bed covers, torn between the desire to run and the fear of what might happen if she moved. Then, the toys sprung into action. The dolls leaped off her shelves and tumbled to the floor, their movements unnatural and erratic. The stuffed animals crawled like spiders, their button eyes gleaming with malevolence. Lily watched in terror as her toy soldiers began marching in a calculated formation, and her remote-controlled car revved to life and sped across the room with a life of its own. Lily knew she had to escape this nightmare. She jumped off her bed and raced for the door, her heart pounding so loudly that it seemed to drown out all other sounds. But as she reached for the doorknob, she felt a cold, plastic hand close around her wrist. She turned to see her once beloved teddy bear, its expression twisted into an evil sneer.
You can't leave us, Lily.
The bear hissed in a voice that was no longer soft and comforting. Summoning all her strength, Lily tore herself free and bolted out of the room, not daring to look back. She sprinted down the hallway, her footsteps echoing in the silence of the house, until she reached her parents' room. Slamming the door shut behind her, she barricaded herself inside and slid to the floor, breathless and trembling. Lily's parents returned home just as the first light of dawn began to streak the sky. When they found her huddled in their room, they listened to her chilling tale of the toys that had turned evil. While they tried to reassure her that it was all just a bad dream, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that her toys had been tainted by something sinister that night, a darkness lurking beneath their plastic smiles and fluffy exteriors, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself.
In a serene neighborhood where white picket fences and well-tended gardens adorned every yard, lived a teenage girl named Chloe. She was a thoughtful and introspective girl, often finding solace in the pages of her books and the whispers of the wind. But on this fateful night, the tranquility of her world would be shattered by an unspeakable terror. Chloe's mother had gone out for a rare evening of socializing, leaving her daughter alone in their cozy home. The moon cast a soft glow over the streets, and the occasional distant laughter from neighboring houses drifted through the air. However, the idyllic atmosphere was about to be tainted by something far more sinister. Chloe was no stranger to horror stories, having read countless tales of monsters and ghosts. But nothing could have prepared her for the chilling reality that was about to unfold. As the night deepened, she felt an inexplicable unease, as if the very air had grown heavy with foreboding. She tried to immerse herself in a novel, attempting to escape the unsettling feeling that seemed to gnaw at her from within. Yet every creak of the house and every rustle of leaves outside only heightened her anxiety. She brushed it off as her imagination running wild, but deep down, she knew something was wrong. Then, a soft tapping sound echoed from the window. Chloe's heart skipped a beat, and she froze, her eyes locked on the source of the noise. She couldn't make out anything in the darkness beyond the glass, but a shiver ran down her spine. She took a deep breath, trying to rationalize the situation, telling herself it was probably just a tree branch brushing against the window pane. But the tapping persisted, growing more insistent. Chloe's heart raced as she realized that this was no natural occurrence. She watched, paralyzed with fear, as a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness and pressed its face against the window, illuminated by the soft moonlight. Chloe's breath caught in her throat as recognition dawned upon her. It was her father, a man she had only known through photographs and stories. He had been imprisoned for a crime that had shattered her family's sense of safety and trust. His cold eyes stared at her, and the corners of his lips curled into a sinister grin. A wave of terror washed over Chloe as she comprehended the reality of her situation. Her father had escaped from prison, and now he was stalking her in her own home. The realization felt like a nightmare from the pages of a horror novel, one that she couldn't simply close and walk away from. Her phone buzzed, jolting her out of her shock. A message appeared on the screen, sending a chill down her spine. "I've missed you, Chloe. It's time for us to be together again." Tears welled up in her eyes as she read the words. Her father's voice, his touch, his very presence, had become a haunting specter that had no right to invade her life. She was trapped, alone, and her sanctuary had turned into a prison. Summoning every ounce of courage, Chloe dialed 911, her voice shaking as she explained the situation to the operator. The minutes stretched on as she clutched the phone, praying for help to arrive before her father could breach the walls of her home. Outside, the tapping grew louder, accompanied by faint whispers that seemed to dance on the edge of her perception. Chloe's heart pounded in her chest, drowning out the outside world as she waited for salvation. Finally, the distant wail of sirens cut through the night. The flashing lights of police cars cast an otherworldly glow on the quiet street, revealing her father's figure as he retreated into the shadows. Officers swarmed the area, and Chloe watched as they apprehended him, finally ending the torment he had inflicted upon her. As the first rays of dawn broke through the horizon, Chloe was surrounded by law enforcement, her neighbors, and her mother, who had rushed back upon receiving the distressing news. The darkness of the night was slowly replaced by the warmth of the sun, and the nightmare that had gripped her began to fade. In the aftermath, Chloe realized the strength she possessed within herself, the courage to face the darkest corners of her existence. While the scars of that night would remain, she would continue to embrace the light, finding solace in the support of those who cared for her. And as her community rallied around her, she understood that even in the face of the most terrifying horrors, there could be a glimmer of hope that shone through the darkness. Thank you all for watching. If you like more content just like this, please make sure to like and subscribe and tap that bell icon so you never miss a spine-chilling new video. Thanks for all the support, and we'll see you again next time.